Well, we've been getting lots of updates to the story of Justice Doris Ling-Cohan. As you guys may remember, there was a surprise sneak attack by landlord attorneys, basically knocking her out of her renomination by the Democratic Party for her judgeship. This is a very unusual thing because there are no complaints or disciplinary basis for this. Just someone from the screening panel starts leaking to the Post that they think she's lazy, and presumably they think she's shiftless as well, which has all these racial overtones. What makes this a landlord attack is Justice Doris Ling-Cohan has been on the Appellate Term. That's directly over the housing court and over the civil court. The appeals from cases in those courts go up to the court that she's sitting on. And she's a Supreme Court justice. That means she's one of the justices or judges who is charged with overseeing what's going on in the nightmare world of housing court. And what you have to understand is that this is a world where tenants are under the gun. A landlord can file a case, and 5 days later, you're evicted. It's simply, I cannot overstate how important it is to have a judge who has some sort of insight and balance for tenants, because remember, most of these judges are people who own property. They're the richer people in the world, and they live in richer places in the city, and who thinks it's something that you can just snap your fingers and people can come up with thousands of dollars that they don't actually owe, and the court can hold it till we decide. We need a judge who's balanced. One of the main things about her is that landlord attorneys hate her guts. We've been getting updates coming back and forth about this case, and when I say landlord attorneys hate her guts, I need to be a little more balanced here, a little more detailed rather. There are people who represent both sides. There are people who mainly represent landlords who have no problem with Justice Ling-Cohan. They might not like some of her rulings, but they think she's doing her job. And if she had been a white justice, no one would question her job performance at all. So there are some people to whom, irregardless of her race, irregardless of her activity in other areas of the law, who really feel that, she's a judge, she's doing what a judge is doing, and I may not like some of the things she's doing, but that's within the realm of what judges do. The landlord attorneys I'm talking about are really more like slumlord attorneys. These are the sort of scum that really hate her guts. First of all, a lot of them live outside the city. So unfortunately, a lot of the people who practice in landlord-tenant court live way out in Long Island or way up in Westchester County. And the idea is that tenants have a hard time getting to their office to serve papers or to do anything. And these people are out in the suburbs hating our system of law that's here to protect our tenants in a city that has the largest number of tenants, I think, of any other city in New York, in the United States. So their dislike of Doris Ling-Cohan is because in their backwater realms, they don't like due process for tenants. In other parts of the country, the landlord can simply declare, I want the tenants out, snap their fingers and throw them out in the street and steal things. It's because in other places there aren't that many tenants, or there weren't that many tenants, and the law has built up on this sort of like a castle doctrine for landlords. So the importance of having a judge who is independent of those attorneys, those type of attorneys, cannot be overstated. A lot of the judges simply kiss up to the landlord attorneys and the crooked landlord attorneys I was describing, simply so that they can get more money for their campaign to be renewed. Now, when you're a Supreme Court justice, you're pretty much exempt from all of that campaigning that a civil court judge has to do, but there's still more going on. You need to have people in there fighting for you, and people with money can be in there fighting for you. Now, mind you, in theory, everybody on this committee has to be someone in New York County, or at least within the first department, which is New York County or the Bronx. I feel that what I've described for you are people out in the suburbs, but there are people, lawyers in New York City, who have some of that same thought process because they were, maybe trained by these law firms that are now outside of the city of New York. And speaking of which, we need to bring them into the city of New York. We have heard all sorts of stories. We've had updates. There have been 2 New York Law Journal articles telling us that don't worry, it's going to be overturned. Doris Ling-Cohan is going to be renewed, which is so important, that someone who has some sort of balance for the majority of New Yorkers, meaning the tenants. In a democracy, the majority is supposed to be protected, but they're not. And if they succeed in knocking her off, there could be all sorts of repercussions. So there have been a lot of stories back and forth. Oh, don't worry, she's fine. There is still leeway. The attack against her is real. What happened to Keith Wright? He's the Democratic leader in New York County. What happened is very important, because what's going on in Kings County and in the second department can show you just how bad things can get. It's almost like we're thrown back into the Middle Ages. In the second department, they're like, who cares if the landlord does something illegal? They can still knock you out. They can evict a tenant at whim. So we need to keep a judge with a proven record on the appellate level of providing protection for tenants. So what can you do? No matter where you are in the city, this should concern you, because it's like a wall falling or collapsing, or a dike breaking. Once you start putting people of a hostile legal bent in appellate positions, it can spread like wildfire and cause all sorts of problems for tenants all over the city. So get out there, call up Assemblyman, the Democratic leader, to tell him, look, you got to protect the judge and keep someone in the Appellate Term First Department who cares about tenants.